I have always believed that love requires sacrifice. Not the grand, dramatic kind you see in movies, but the quiet, constant erosion of yourself in small increments. The kind where you smile when you want to speak, where you nod when you want to shake your head, where you become so practiced at reading someone else's needs that you forget you once had your own. My name is Celine Marlowe, and for most of my adult life, I've been very good at disappearing. Not literally, of course. I am still here, still breathing, still moving through rooms and conversations with what most people would call grace. I have learned to dress well, to speak softly, to laugh at the right moments. I have become the kind of woman people describe as elegant, poised, put together. But somewhere along the way, I stopped asking myself who I was when no one was watching. I met Cashin Royce when I was 24. He was 30, already successful in ways that seemed impossible to someone like me. He worked in finance, though I never fully understood what that meant beyond the expensive suits and the effortless confidence that came with them. He was handsome in a way that photographs could never quite capture, all sharp angles and perfectly styled hair, with eyes that seemed to look right through you and see something you didn't even know was there. When he looked at me, I felt seen. And for someone who had spent most of her life feeling invisible, that was intoxicating. We married within a year. It felt like a fairy tale, the kind of story you tell your children someday, though we never talked about children. We never talked about a lot of things, actually. Our relationship moved with the momentum of inevitability, like a river flowing downhill. You don't question a river. You just let it carry you. The first time I noticed something was wrong, I dismissed it. We were at a charity gala, one of those events where everyone wears too much jewelry and smiles too widely. Cashin introduced me to a colleague as his companion for the evening. Not his wife. His companion. I told myself I had misheard, that the music was too loud, that it didn't matter anyway. What difference did a word make? But words have weight. They accumulate like snow on a branch, invisible at first, until suddenly the whole thing snaps. Tonight is our 4th anniversary. Cashin has planned a dinner party at our home, a sprawling event for 90 guests. 90. I tried to suggest something smaller, something more intimate, but he looked at me with that expression I have come to know so well. The one that says I am being unreasonable, that I don't understand how these things work, that this is important for reasons I am too naive to grasp. So I stopped suggesting. The house looks beautiful. I have spent the last 3 days making sure of it. Fresh flowers in every room, the good china polished until it gleams, the caterers briefed and rebriefed until they could probably recite the evening schedule in their sleep. I have worn myself thin making sure everything is perfect, because perfection is what Cashin expects, and I have learned that meeting his expectations is easier than questioning them. I am wearing a dress I bought specifically for tonight, deep emerald green that Cashin said would photograph well. I have twisted my hair into an elegant knot at the base of my neck, applied makeup with a careful hand, checked my reflection more times than I can count. I look the part. I always look the part. The guests begin arriving at 7. They come in waves, filling our home with laughter and conversation and the clinking of glasses. I move among them like a ghost, greeting people whose names I will forget within the hour, accepting compliments on the house and the flowers and my dress with practiced humility. I am good at this. I have had years of practice. Cashin is in his element. He stands near the center of the living room, holding court with a circle of colleagues and clients, his voice carrying over the ambient noise with that particular confidence that comes from knowing everyone is listening. He catches my eye once, gives me a small nod of approval. I have done well. The house is perfect. I am perfect. I should feel proud. Instead, I feel hollow. Around 8:30, someone suggests speeches. It starts casually, with one of Cashin's business partners raising a glass to toast his recent promotion. Then another guest chimes in with a funny story about a golf game. The mood is warm, celebratory, slightly drunk. And then someone says we should hear from the host. Cashin demurs at first, playing modest, but everyone can tell he wants to speak. He always wants to speak. He steps to the center of the room, and the conversations gradually quiet. I am standing near the fireplace, watching him, feeling that familiar tightness in my chest that I have learned to ignore. He begins with gratitude. Thanks everyone for coming, for their friendship, for their support. He talks about the business, about exciting developments on the horizon, about the importance of community and connection. His words are smooth, rehearsed, perfect. He has always been good with words. And then he turns to look at me. For a moment, my heart lifts. Maybe tonight will be different. Maybe he will acknowledge me the way I have been craving without even admitting it to myself. Maybe he will say something real, something true, something that makes me feel less like a prop in his carefully curated life. He gestures for me to come closer. I move through the crowd, feeling dozens of eyes tracking my movement. When I reach his side, he places a hand on my shoulder, and I can feel the weight of it, the possession in it. That's when he leans down and whispers in my ear, so quietly that only I can hear. Behave yourself. Here, you're my cousin, not my wife. The words hit me like cold water. For a moment, I think I have misunderstood. Cousin. Not wife. Cousin. I look up at him, searching his face for some sign that this is a joke, some strange attempt at humor that I am too slow to understand. But his expression is serious, almost warning. His hand tightens slightly on my shoulder. The room is waiting. Everyone is watching. I can feel their attention like heat on my skin. Cashin straightens and addresses the crowd with a smile. This is Celine, my cousin from my mother's side. She has been kind enough to help organize tonight's event. I think we all owe her a round of applause. The guests clap politely. Some of them are confused. I can see it in their faces, the slight furrowing of brows, the quick glances exchanged between couples. Some of them know I am his wife. We have been introduced at other events. But they play along, because that is what people do in situations like this. They smooth over the awkward moments. They pretend not to notice. I stand there, frozen, while Cashin continues speaking. His voice seems to come from very far away. I am not listening to the words. I am listening to the silence beneath them, to the space where my identity used to be. Cousin. He has erased me. In front of 90 people, in our home, on our anniversary, he has erased me. I should say something. I should correct him, should laugh it off as a mistake, should do anything other than stand here like a statue. But my voice has left me. My thoughts are a jumble of shock and confusion and something deeper, something I have been pushing down for so long that I barely recognize it as anger. How did I get here? How did I become the kind of woman who allows herself to be introduced as someone she is not? The speech ends. The applause swells. Cashin releases my shoulder and turns to accept congratulations from the nearest guests. I am dismissed. I am irrelevant. I am a cousin who helped with the flowers. I move toward the edge of the room, needing space, needing air. My hands are shaking. I clasp them together to hide it. Someone offers me a glass of wine, and I take it without looking at who is holding it. I drink half of it in one swallow. 3 minutes. That's how long I have been standing here, processing what just happened. 3 minutes of replaying his words in my mind, of trying to make sense of something that has no sense to it. I look across the room and see Cashin laughing with a group of men, his posture relaxed, his expression pleased. He looks like a man who has just pulled off something clever. And maybe he has. Maybe this was always the plan. Maybe I was always meant to be decorative but disposable, present but unnamed. I think about our wedding. The vows we exchanged. The promises we made. For better or worse. In sickness and in health. Till death do us part. We said those words in front of 100 people, in a church with stained glass windows that painted the floor in colors I can still remember. We meant them. I meant them. Didn't we? I finished the wine. set the glass down on a side table. My mind is racing, but underneath the chaos, there is a clarity beginning to form. A terrible, perfect clarity. This is not the first time Cashin has diminished me. It is just the first time he has done it so publicly, so boldly, with such complete disregard for my feelings. But the pattern has always been there. The small corrections. The subtle redirections. The way he answers questions directed at me. The way he makes decisions without consulting me, then frames them as though they were mutual choices. I have spent 4 years adapting to him, molding myself to fit the shape of his expectations, believing that this was what partnership meant, what marriage required. But standing here, in this room full of strangers who think I am his cousin, I realize something fundamental has shifted inside me. I do not want to be his cousin. I do not want to be his convenient helper. I do not want to be erased. A woman approaches me. I recognize her vaguely from other events, though I cannot remember her name. She is older than me, maybe 50, with silver hair cut short and intelligent eyes. "You organized all of this?" she asks, gesturing to the room. I nod. My voice still feels unreliable. "It's beautiful. You have excellent taste." She pauses, studies me with an expression I cannot quite read. "Though I could have sworn I met you at the Hendersons' wedding last year. Weren't you with Cashin then?" There it is. The question I have been dreading and hoping for in equal measure. I could lie. I could play along. I could protect Cashin's strange charade and disappear a little further into the background of my own life. Or I could tell the truth. I say quietly. I'm his wife. The woman's eyebrows rise. She glances across the room at Cashin, then back at me. But he just said, I know what he said. We stand in silence for a moment. I can see her mind working, trying to piece together the logic of what is happening. There is no logic to it. There is only control, and the lengths one person will go to maintain it. Why would he do that? She asks, her voice genuinely confused. I shake my head. I wish I knew. She looks at me with something like sympathy or maybe recognition. What are you going to do? That is the question, isn't it? What am I going to do? I could leave. Walk out of this party, out of this house, out of this marriage. Start over somewhere new, someone who knows how to take up space instead of shrinking from it. But leaving feels like running. And I have run from myself for long enough. I'm going to tell the truth, I say. The words surprise me even as I speak them. But once they're out, I know they are right. Not because I want revenge. Not because I want to humiliate Cashin the way he has humiliated me. But because I deserve to exist fully in my own life. Because my identity is not his to give or take away. The woman nods slowly. Good, she says. Then she squeezes my arm gently and moves away into the crowd. I take a breath. Another. My heart is pounding so hard I can feel it in my throat. I have never done anything like this before. I have never stood up for myself in such a public way. The idea terrifies me. But the alternative terrifies me more. I begin moving through the room, making my way toward where Cashin is standing. The guests part naturally to let me through. Some of them are still talking, unaware of the shift happening in the atmosphere. Others have gone quiet, watching me with curious eyes. Cashin sees me coming. For just a second, something flickers across his face. Uncertainty, maybe. Or fear. But then his expression smooths into that practiced smile, the one he uses when he needs to control a situation. Celine, he says warmly, as though we are the best of friends. Are you enjoying yourself? I stop in front of him. The men he has been talking to step back slightly, sensing tension even if they do not understand its source. I need to speak, I say. My voice is steadier than I expected. Cashin's smile tightens. Of course. We can talk later, after the guests. Now, I interrupt. I need to speak now. The room is quieting. Conversations are trailing off as people turn to look. I can feel the weight of their attention, but it feels different than it did before. This time, I have chosen it. Cashin's joy tightens. He leans closer, dropping his voice. Celine, this is not the time. We can discuss whatever is bothering you in private. You made it public, I say quietly. You stood in front of 90 people and told them I was your cousin. You erased our marriage. You erased me. So no, I don't think privacy is what this moment calls for. His face pales. I can see him calculating, trying to figure out how to regain control of the narrative. But I am not waiting for his permission anymore. I turn to face the room. Every eye is on me. The silence is complete. My name is Celine Marlowe, I begin. My voice is shaking, but it is loud enough. For years ago, I married Cashin Royce in a church ceremony with 100 witnesses. We exchanged vows. We made promises. We built a life together, or at least I thought we did. I can hear Cashin's sharp intake of breath beside me, but I do not look at him. If I look at him, I might lose my nerve. Tonight, my husband introduced me to all of you as his cousin. I am not his cousin. I am his wife. And standing here in the home we share on our anniversary, I was erased. My identity was taken from me as though it meant nothing. The room is so quiet, I can hear the grandfather clock ticking in the hallway. I don't know why he did it, I continue. Maybe he was embarrassed of me. Maybe he thought introducing me as his wife would complicate some business relationship. Maybe there is a reason that would make sense if I understood his world better. But I have spent 4 years trying to understand his world, trying to fit myself into the spaces he left for me, and I have realized something tonight. I pause, gathering my thoughts, feeling the truth of what I am about to say settle into my bones. I have been so afraid of being too much, too emotional, too demanding, too present. I believed that love meant making myself smaller, quieter, easier to accommodate. I believed that if I just adapted enough, if I just sacrificed enough of myself, I would earn the right to be loved fully. My eyes are burning, but I blink the tears away. This is not the time for crying. This is the time for clarity. But that is not love. That is disappearing. And I am done disappearing. I turn to look at Cashin now. His face is a mask of shock and anger and something that might be shame, though I cannot be sure. We stare at each other across the impossible distance that has opened between us. I deserve to be acknowledged, I say, speaking directly to him now. I deserve to be introduced as who I am. I deserve to exist fully in my own marriage. And if you cannot give me that, then I do not know what we are doing here. For a long moment, no one moves. No one speaks. The air feels charged, electric, like the moment before a storm breaks. And then someone starts clapping. It is the woman with silver hair, the one I spoke with earlier. She is applauding slowly, deliberately, her eyes locked on mine with something like pride. Another person joins her, then another. Within seconds, half the room is clapping. Not everyone. Some people look uncomfortable, unsure of what is happening or whose side they should be on. Some are whispering to each other, probably already composing the story they will tell tomorrow. But enough people are clapping that the sound fills the room, and I feel something inside me crack open. It is not triumph. It is not satisfaction. It is something deeper. It is the feeling of being seen after years of invisibility. Cashin stands frozen. I watch a dozen emotions play across his face. Anger, embarrassment, disbelief, and underneath it all, a flicker of something that might be realization. He opens his mouth to speak, but nothing comes out. For once in his life, he has no words. I do not wait for him to find them. I turn and walk toward the door, moving through the crowd of guests who step aside to let me pass. Someone touches my arm as I go by. Someone else whispers, "Good for you." I barely register it. I am focused on putting one foot in front of the other, on making it out of that room before the adrenaline wears off and I collapse. I make it to the hallway, then the stairs. My legs are shaking so badly I have to grip the banister to steady myself. I can hear the party resuming behind me, the sound of confused conversation and speculation. Let them talk. Let them wonder. I am done performing for an audience that does not see me. I reach our bedroom and close the door behind me. Only then do I let myself sink to the floor, my back against the wood, my breath coming in ragged gasps. I did it. I actually did it. The reality of what just happened begins to settle over me. I stood in front of 90 people and told the truth. I claimed my identity. I refused to disappear. And it was terrifying. And it was necessary. And I have no idea what comes next. I sit there for a long time, listening to the muffled sounds of the party downstairs. Eventually, I hear cars starting, goodbyes being called, the gradual exodus of guests. The house grows quieter, until there is only silence. I wait for Cashin to come upstairs. He does not. Hours pass. I change out of the emerald dress, wash the makeup from my face, let my hair down. I look at myself in the bathroom mirror and barely recognize the woman staring back at me. She looks exhausted. She looks raw. But she also looks real in a way I have not felt in years. Around 2 in the morning, I hear footsteps on the stairs. I am sitting on the edge of the bed, still awake, my mind too active for sleep. The door opens slowly. Cashin stands in the doorway. He has loosened his tie, unbuttoned his collar. He looks older than he did this morning, the lines around his eyes more pronounced. We look at each other across the room. The guests are gone, he says finally. I nod. He steps inside, closes the door behind him. You humiliated me. You humiliated yourself, I reply. My voice is calm. I just told the truth. Do you have any idea what this will do to my reputation? My business relationships? I almost laugh. Of course that is what he is worried about. Not our marriage. Not my feelings. His reputation. I don't care, I say, and I mean it. I don't care about your reputation or your business relationships or what your colleagues think. I care about whether my husband sees me as a person or as a decorative object he can hide when it suits him. Cashin runs a hand through his hair. You don't understand. There were important clients there tonight. People whose opinions matter. And I don't matter? That's not what I said. Then what are you saying, Cashin? Explain it to me. Make me understand why you introduced your wife as your cousin on our anniversary. He is quiet for a long moment. When he speaks again, his voice is different. Smaller. There was a client there. A very conservative man who handles millions in investments. He mentioned once that he prefers to work with bachelors. He thinks marriage makes men soft, distracted. I thought if he knew you were my wife, it might jeopardize the relationship. I stare at him. So you erased our marriage. For a client. It was one night. One introduction. I was going to explain it to you later, after everyone left. You weren't going to explain anything. You were going to hope I didn't make a scene, and then you were going to brush it off like it didn't matter. He cannot argue with that. We both know it is true. I have spent 4 years disappearing for you, I say quietly. Changing how I dress, how I speak, who I spend time with. I have molded myself into the perfect corporate wife because I thought that was what you needed. But it is never enough, is it? There is always another adjustment to make, another piece of myself to give up. And tonight, you asked me to give up the most basic fact of who I am. I never asked you to change, Cashin says, but there is no conviction in his voice. You didn't have to ask. You just expected it. And I was so desperate to be loved that I complied. The word hangs between us. Desperate. It is an ugly word, but it is accurate. Do you love me? I ask suddenly. Not the version of me that fits your life. Not the woman who organizes your parties and looks good in photographs. Me. The person underneath all of that. Cashin looks genuinely stricken by the question. Of course I love you. Then why don't I feel it? He has no answer to that. I stand up, suddenly exhausted beyond measure. I cannot do this anymore. I cannot keep shrinking myself to fit into your world. I need space to figure out who I am when I'm not performing for you. What are you saying? I'm saying I need time. I am saying I am going to stay with my sister for a while. I am saying that if you want this marriage to continue, something fundamental needs to change. Cashin's face hardens. You are overreacting. This is one argument. One bad night. This is 4 years of bad nights that I have been pretending were fine. I move past him, pulling a suitcase from the closet. I start packing mechanically. Clothes. Toiletries. The things I will need for the immediate future. Cashin watches me, his expression cycling through anger and confusion and something that might be fear. Where will you go? He asks finally. My sister's house. For how long? I don't know. I close the suitcase. Turn to face him one last time. I hope you figure out what you actually want, Cashin. Because I don't think you know. I don't think you have ever known. Then I walk past him, down the stairs, through the house that still smells faintly of flowers and expensive wine. I get into my car and drive away without looking back. My sister lives 40 minutes away in a small house she shares with her husband and 2 children. I call her from the road, apologize for the late hour, ask if I can stay for a while. She does not ask questions. She just says yes. When I arrive, she is waiting on the porch in her bathrobe. She hugs me without speaking, and I let myself lean into her embrace. We have not been particularly close in recent years. I have been too busy disappearing into my marriage to maintain other relationships. But she is my sister, and she is here, and that is enough. She makes tea. We sit at her kitchen table in the pre-dawn darkness, and I tell her everything. Not just about tonight, but about the past 4 years. The slow erosion. The constant adaptation. The way I have learned to read Cashin's moods and adjust myself accordingly. The way I have stopped having opinions because it is easier than defending them. She listens without interrupting. When I finish, she reaches across the table and takes my hand. I have been worried about you, she says quietly. You stopped calling. Stopped visiting. Every time I saw you, you seemed a little more faded, a little more distant. I thought maybe that was just marriage, that I was being judgmental. But it wasn't marriage. It was him. Hearing her say it out loud makes something break open inside me. I start crying, really crying, for the first time since this whole thing began. She comes around the table and holds me while I sob, and I let myself be held. I stay with my sister for 3 weeks. During that time, Cashin calls repeatedly. He sends flowers. He sends long text messages alternating between apologies and accusations. I read them all, but I do not respond. I need the silence. I need the space to think without his voice in my head, shaping my thoughts before I can fully form them. I spend my days walking in my sister's neighborhood, reading books I have been meaning to get to for years, playing with my niece and nephew. I remember what it feels like to laugh without monitoring whether my laughter is appropriate. I remember what it feels like to have an opinion and express it without immediately second-guessing myself. Slowly, I start to piece together who I am underneath all the adaptation. I am someone who loves poetry but stopped reading it because Cashin found it pretentious. I am someone who wanted to volunteer at the community center but stopped going because it conflicted with his dinner schedule. I am someone who used to paint, badly but joyfully, until I convinced myself I did not have time for hobbies. I am someone I have not been in a very long time. On the 22nd day, Cashin shows up at my sister's house. She calls me to the door, and I find him standing on the porch looking haggard and uncertain. Can we talk? He asks. I consider saying no, but I owe us both this conversation. We walk to a nearby park and sit on a bench overlooking a small pond. For a while, neither of us speaks. I have been thinking a lot, Cashin says finally. About what you said. About the way I have treated you. I wait. I didn't see it, he continues. I didn't see how I was controlling you. I thought I was protecting you, helping you navigate my world. But I was erasing you. You were right. It is the first time he has admitted fault without immediately defending himself. I feel something shift, though I am not sure what it means yet. I talked to a therapist, he says. Just twice so far. But she helped me see some things. About control. About my need to manage every aspect of my life, including you. About how that comes from my own insecurity, not from anything you did wrong. I look at him in surprise. Cashin has always been dismissive of therapy, calling it self-indulgent. I know I have a lot of work to do, he says. On myself. On understanding why I need to control things so much. And I know that you might not want to be part of that process. But I'm asking you to consider it. To consider couples therapy. To consider giving us a chance to rebuild this differently. Why? I ask. Why now? Is it because you miss me, or because you miss having someone to manage your life? It is a harsh question, but I need to know the answer. Cashin looks out at the pond. Both, at first, he admits. I won't lie to you. The house feels empty. I'm terrible at managing the day-to-day things you used to handle. But the more I have sat with it, the more I realize it is not about the logistics. It is about you. About the way you used to look at me like I was someone worth admiring. About the conversations we used to have before I started shutting you down. About the person I was when we first met, before I let work and status and control consume everything. He turns to look at me. I miss you. The real you. And I am sorry it took losing you for me to realize I had been pushing you away. I feel tears prickling at my eyes, but I blink them back. I don't know if I can trust you again. I know. I don't know if I even want to try. I know that too. We sit in silence. A family walks by with a dog. Children are playing on the swings in the distance. Life continues around us, indifferent to our small tragedy. I need to know you see me, I say finally. Not as your wife. Not as the person who organizes your life. Me, Celine. The person who exists separate from you. I do, he says. I see you. Then prove it. He nods slowly. How? Therapy. Real therapy, not just 2 sessions. Individual for both of us and couples therapy if we decide to try again. Transparency about your work and why you make the decisions you make. Space for me to rebuild my own identity, my own interests, without you hovering or directing. And a genuine commitment to treating me as an equal partner, not as someone who needs to be managed. Cashin takes a breath. Okay, that is not a promise to stay, I clarify. That is a promise to try. But if I see you falling back into old patterns, if I feel myself starting to disappear again, I am done. No second chances. No more explanations. I will leave, and I will not come back. I understand. Do you, I wonder? Do you really understand what I am asking for? Or are you just saying what I need to hear so that things can go back to normal? But I cannot read his mind. I can only judge him by his actions. I need more time, I say. I am not coming home yet. But we can start therapy. We can start talking. And we will see. He looks relieved, though he is trying to hide it. Thank you. I shake my head. Don't thank me. Just do the work. We return to therapy the following week. Individual sessions for each of us and one joint session where we mostly sit in uncomfortable silence while the therapist asks gentle questions neither of us knows how to answer. It is hard. Harder than I expected. There are sessions where I leave feeling hopeless, convinced that we are too broken to fix. There are sessions where Cashin gets defensive, where his old patterns reassert themselves, and I can see him struggling not to take control of the narrative. But there are also moments of breakthrough. Moments where he admits things I never thought he would acknowledge. Moments where I admit my own patterns, my own tendency to make myself small rather than risk conflict. We are both damaged. We have both contributed to the dysfunction of our marriage in different ways. That realization does not make it easier, but it makes it more honest. 3 months later, I move back into the house. Not because everything is fixed, but because I am ready to try living in the same space again. We set up boundaries. Separate offices. Time apart each week where we focus on our individual interests. Regular check-ins where we talk about how we are feeling instead of just what we need to do. It is strange, learning to be married all over again. Like we are strangers trying to figure out how to share a life. Some days are good. Cashin makes an effort to ask about my painting, to remember the small things I mention in passing. I make an effort to communicate my needs instead of expecting him to read my mind. Other days are hard. Old patterns creep back in. I catch myself deferring to his opinion when I have one of my own. He catches himself trying to manage my schedule. We call each other on it. We argue. We apologize. We try again. It is not a fairy tale. It is work. Constant, exhausting, necessary work. 6 months after that night at the party, we host a small dinner. Just 6 people. Friends we both genuinely like. When they arrive, Cashin introduces me clearly, proudly. This is Celine, my wife. It is such a small thing. 5 words. But they matter. They matter so much that I feel tears threatening, and I have to excuse myself to the kitchen for a moment to compose myself. Later that night, after the guests have left and we are cleaning up together, Cashin catches my hand. Thank you for staying, he says. Thank you for giving us a chance to do this differently. I squeeze his hand. Thank you for doing the work. It is not perfect. We are not perfect. But we are both here, both trying, both willing to be honest about how hard this is. And for now, that is enough. I have learned something crucial through all of this. Love is not about disappearing for someone else. It is not about making yourself small or quiet or convenient. Real love sees you. Real love makes space for you to exist fully, messily, imperfectly. I am still learning how to take up space. I am still learning how to have needs and express them without apologizing. I am still learning how to be Celine, whoever that is, whoever she is becoming. But I am learning. And I am doing it with my eyes open, with boundaries in place, with a clear understanding that I deserve to be seen. The woman I was 4 years ago believed that love required sacrifice. She was not entirely wrong. Love does require sacrifice. But it should be mutual. It should be chosen consciously, not extracted through erosion. The woman I am now knows that the most important thing to protect is not the relationship, but yourself. Because if you lose yourself trying to keep someone else, you have nothing left to offer anyway. I am painting again. Not well, but that is not the point. I have joined a community art group that meets every Thursday. Cashin does not always understand why I go, why I spend 3 hours creating things that will never be displayed in galleries. But he has learned not to question it. He has learned that this is mine and that I need things that are just mine. I volunteer at the community center on Saturday mornings, helping run a reading program for children. It fills some part of me that was empty for too long. Cashin sometimes comments that it takes up time we could be spending together, but he says it gently, and he does not push when I tell him this matters to me. We are learning to be 2 separate people who choose to be together, rather than one person absorbed into the other. It is not always easy. There are still moments where I feel myself starting to shrink, where the old instinct to defer and adapt kicks in. There are still moments where Cashin slips into old habits, where his need for control reasserts itself. But we notice it now. We talk about it. We correct course. A year after that party, we attend another event. A fundraiser for one of Cashin's clients. I am nervous walking in, remembering how these events used to make me feel. Small. Decorative. Forgettable. But this time, when someone asks how I know Cashin, he does not hesitate. This is my wife, Celine. She is an incredible artist and volunteer. You should hear about the program she runs at the community center. The woman turns to me with genuine interest. Tell me about it. And I do. I talk about the children, about the books we read together, about the joy of watching a struggling reader finally make that connection. I talk without monitoring whether I am saying too much, without checking Cashin's face for approval. I talk like someone who exists. Later, in the car on the way home, Cashin reaches for my hand. You were wonderful tonight. Thank you. I mean it. I used to think you needed me to speak for you. But you have always had your own voice. I just was not listening. I look at him in the dim light of the car. No, I say gently. I stopped speaking. You stopped listening. We both contributed to the silence. He nods, acknowledging the truth of it. We drive in comfortable quiet for a while. Do you think we are going to make it? I ask suddenly. It is a question I have been holding for months, afraid of the answer. Cashin is quiet for a long moment. I think we have a chance. A real one. As long as we keep doing the work. It is not the guarantee I used to crave. But it is honest. And honesty is worth more than false certainty. A chance is enough, I say. He squeezes my hand. When we get home, I go straight to the small studio I have set up in the spare bedroom. I pull out a canvas and start mixing paint, losing myself in the familiar rhythm of creation. I am working on a series about identity, about the space between who we are and who we are expected to be. It is messy. It is imperfect. It is mine. Cashin pokes his head in after a while. I am making tea. Do you want some? Please. He brings me a cup and sets it on the table next to my easel, then kisses the top of my head and leaves me to my work. It is such a small gesture, but it represents everything we are trying to build. Respect. Space. The understanding that we can be together without consuming each other. I paint until late into the night, and when I finally go to bed, I feel more myself than I have in years. This is what I have learned. You cannot love someone else fully until you love yourself enough to refuse to disappear. You cannot build a healthy relationship on the foundation of erasure. And you cannot change someone who does not want to change, but you can change yourself, and sometimes that changes everything. I do not know what the future holds. I do not know if Cashin and I will still be together 5 years from now, or 10, or 20. But I know that whatever happens, I will not lose myself again. I have fought too hard to find me to let anyone, even someone I love, take her away. And that, I am learning, is the most important boundary of all. Not the one that protects you from others, but the one that protects you from yourself. From your own willingness to diminish in the name of keeping peace. From your own fear that you are not enough, exactly as you are. You are enough. I am enough. We have always been enough. We just needed to believe it. If you are reading this and you recognize yourself in my story, if you have been making yourself smaller for someone else, I want you to know something. You deserve to exist fully in your own life. You deserve to be acknowledged, to be seen, to be loved for who you actually are, not for how well you can adapt to someone else's needs. Setting boundaries is not selfish. Speaking your truth is not cruel. Refusing to disappear is not unreasonable. It is survival. It is self-respect. It is the foundation of any relationship worth keeping. Stand in your truth. Own your story. And if the people around you cannot handle the full reality of who you are, then maybe they are not your people. You will find your people. You will find your voice. You will find yourself again. I promise. Because I did.